Hello and welcome to my first video here on this channel. I'm very excited because today we're going to create this very satisfying and fun animation. It's definitely going to be a beginner tutorial. We're going to jump a bit into geometry nodes. There's going to be a bit of shading, a bit of lighting. And yeah, so without any further ado, let's get into it. So with a brand new file open, you can click A and X to delete everything. And then we have to create our geometry nodes object. You can use every object you want. I always use a plane. And then we have to switch over to our geometry nodes tab. And then you can click new to add in a new geometry nodes node tree. Now you can delete the group input by hitting X. And then we can add in a cube. Now we can connect our cube to our group output geometry here, and then you can see that we have our cube in our viewport. And now what we're going to do is we're going to instance some other cubes onto every point of this original cube. So we're going to use a instance on points node, and then we're going to duplicate this cube, and we can connect our mesh output into our instance input here. And now you can see that on every vertex of our original cube is another cube. And then you can adjust the size of this instanced cube just by dragging here, and then you can adjust it. Something like 0.2 is fine, I think. And then you can increase the resolution of this object here of our original cube by holding and dragging, and what we want is that there are no gaps between these instanced cubes. So 6 works fine for me here. You can see if I click somewhere in my viewport that there are no gaps between these cubes, which is exactly what we want. And now to create this effect of these cubes getting deleted, we have to add in a delete geometry node. And we have to put it between our cube and our instance on points node. This is important, otherwise this will not work. And now you can see that everything is deleted. And that's because we have to plug in something into our selection here in order to control which cubes are going to be deleted. So we are going to use a noise texture. And then we can connect it to the factor to our selection. And you can see that there are no cubes yet, and that's why we have to add in a color ramp. And now we can fine-tune our selection a bit, and you can see if I slide over this black value that we can add in some cubes, which is exactly what we want. You can also adjust the scale of the noise texture till you like how this looks. If you slide it over, something like this is great, I think. Now we have to add in our cube again so we can see it. We're going to use a join geometry node. And then we can just plug in the mesh output into our geometry input here. And you can see that we can see our cube again. And if we slide this black value over, you can see the other cubes are distributed around it, but you can see that they are intersecting here, and we don't want that, so we have to put in a transform geometry node in between our cube and our join geometry, and then we can scale it down. If you hold shift while dragging, you can fine-tune this a little bit. Something like 0.8 looks perfect, I think. Yes, I think that's perfect. Great. And now we can add in our materials. So we have to add in a set material node. And then you can put it in between the transform geometry and the join geometry of our original cube. And you can duplicate it and put it in between the instance on points and the cube of these instance cubes. And then you can select a material for the original cube, which is our just base material. and then you can add in a material here, and you can use this new material here to be the material for our instanced cubes. And now we can switch over to our shading tab to do some fun textures and shading. Yeah, so here we are in our shading tab, and we can start by manipulating our material 001, which is the material for our distributed cubes. And I want the color of these cubes to be purplish, so something like this. I think this looks great. And I also want a little bit less roughness. And that's actually everything I want to do for this material of these cubes. So we can switch over to the base material to manipulate our cube in the middle, so our base cube. And here I want the color to be something between blue and green. Maybe like this. And I also want this to be metallic, but with a bit of roughness. I think that looks great. And now you can preview how this will look in our render if you click over to our rendered view, and then we can switch our render engine to cycles, because I think it looks way better. And it's ray traced, which is great. And then you can click this little arrow here to open the drop down menu, and you can uncheck scene lights and scene world. And now you can preview how this will look in cycles. And I think it looks great. But now we have to animate our cubes spawning in and then also deleting. So let's switch back to our geometry nodes tab. And what we have to animate is our black value here. And you can see that somewhere around here the cubes start to appear. So maybe I'll start here. And then if you're on frame 1, you can hover over this position value here if you have the black value selected here. Then you can hit I to insert a keyframe. And then somewhere in the middle, maybe 130 frames, I'm going to slide this over till all the cubes are there. Yeah, like this, great. And then I'm going to hit I again. And then I'm going back to the end, and I'm sliding back that black value somewhere like here. And I'm hitting I again. Now we can preview how this looks if you jump back to frame 1, and then you can hit play by just pressing space. And there you can see our cubes appear. And they disappear again. Great, this is a looping animation, which is always great. Very cool. So now let's switch over to our layout tab, and then we can add some lighting and some backgrounds. For our background, we can add in a plane, and then we can scale it up by, just scale it up a bit. Then if you hit the tab key, then you can switch over to edit mode. And if you hit 2, you can select some edges, and I just want to select this edge here. Then I'm hitting E to extrude it, and then I'm hitting the middle mouse button just to extrude it on the Z axis here, like this. And then I'm selecting this edge right here, and then I'm hitting Ctrl B to bevel it. And then you can scroll up on your mouse wheel to add some subdivisions. Something like this is great. Perfect. I'm hitting tab again to switch back to object mode, and then right click and shade smooth. And we can also just move our cube up a bit like this. Great. And then we can add in a camera. So you can hit this X icon here, and then you can hit Shift A and add in a camera. And then if you hold Shift and then you click your middle mouse button and you drag up, then we can move our view a little bit up. And then if you hold Control Alt and number pad 0, you can snap your camera to your viewport. And if we hit G and Z again, we can fine tune the position of our camera a bit. And now we can rotate our cube in the middle here so it looks a little bit cooler. If you switch over to your object properties here, and then you can set this Z rotation to 127.5 and the X rotation to 45. That was 24, 45. Now you can see that this looks way cooler. And if we play our animation, this is how it looks in object mode. Very great. And if we switch over to cycles, to our rendered mode, we can see that it kind of looks boring at the moment. So we have to add in some lights and some contrast. To increase the contrast, we can change the color of our world to black, and then we can add in a area light, and you can move it up somewhere and over here a bit, and then you can rotate it and scale it up a bit. And if you click your right mouse button, you can say adjust light power, and then you can increase the light power. Something like this looks great, I think. And now if we hit play, we can see our animation working. We go, and you can see that we can't see any gaps in between these cubes here, which is exactly what we wanted. So to add like this extra sauce to it, I think it would be great if the background, so the color of this backdrop here, is this purplish color at the beginning when our cube is still blue, and then in the middle when our cube is purple, then the backdrop has the color of our cube at the beginning. So in order to do that, we have to switch over to shading again, and then we can just add in a new material, and we can set our material to be purplish in the beginning, something like this. Great. You can just drag up here to add in a new window, and you can click this icon here and then set it to timeline. And then if we go back to frame 1, we can just hover over our base color here and hit I. And then if we go into the middle where our cube is purple, we can set our color here to be this bluish color, and we can hit I again, and then we can switch back to our end, and there we can just duplicate our keyframes from frame 1 like this. And now if we switch back to layout, we can see how this looks. So it starts purplish, then it becomes more bluish, and then it fades back into purplish. And that's basically it. And now I'm going to show you how you can export it. So you can just click the output icon here, then you can select your folder here, and I would choose OpenEXR and DWAA to encode it. And if you want your render to be a little bit faster, I would just set the maximum samples to something like 40 maybe. Yeah, 40. And I would use the optics denoiser, and of course you have to switch it over to GPU so it will render much faster. And underneath the light paths, I would set this to 2. We don't really need a lot of light paths, and 2 diffuse light paths, 2 glossy light paths. We don't have any transmission, and we don't have any transparency, so we can set this to 0. You can filter reflective and refractive caustics, and underneath performance I would use persistent data, and now this will render really fast. Yeah, that's basically it, and thanks for watching. Now you can see some things I've done with this technique, some animations. And yeah, please leave some comments and tell me what you liked about this tutorial and what you didn't like. Just be kind, it's my first tutorial. Yeah, but thanks for watching.